Babe, don't be nervous. My family is super easy to get along with. I stood at my girlfriend's front door, my palms slick with sweat as I clutched the gifts. Yeah, my aunt, my sister, and both my cousins are here today. They're all dying to meet you. The door swung open, and I saw them. 1, 2, 3, 4 familiar faces staring back at me. My vision went black. Dying to meet me? More like dying to eat me alive. My name is Ethan Carter, and today was supposed to be one of the most important days of my life. The first time meeting my girlfriend Claire's family. I've been prepping for this day for a solid month. From a case of ridiculously expensive Napa Valley Cabernet to a limited edition designer handbag, I had to pull strings to get. The trunk of my car was packed. All told, I dropped over $5,000. It's not that I'm a show-off. It's just that Claire, she's incredible. So incredible that I felt like if I didn't win over her entire family, I'd be doing a disservice to the love she gave me. We met in an art gallery. I was staring at a painting called The Deep, lost in thought, when she walked up beside me and whispered, "You like this one, too?" I feel like it's not about the ocean. It's about being alone. That one sentence shot straight through my heart. We talked about everything from art to life, from our jobs to our dreams. The more we talked, the more we clicked. She was like a ray of warm sunshine, cutting through the gray fatigue of my life. She was beautiful, gentle, kind, and sharp. The perfect girlfriend. We'd only been dating for 6 months, but things got serious fast, and we were already talking about marriage. "Ethan, I'm telling you, everyone's here today, but you can't be nervous," Claire said in the car, adjusting my tie. She looked at me with those eyes of hers, as clear and innocent as a deer's. My grandma, my parents, my sister, my aunt, and both my cousins, they're all really nice. I sucked in a breath and forced a smile that felt more like a grimace. Not nervous. Not at all. Time to face the firing squad, right? Truthfully, I was panicking. It wasn't my first time meeting the parents, but I'd never faced a lineup like this. An entire tribunal of female relatives, all gathered to pass judgment on me. The pressure was suffocating. Claire's family lived in a beautiful, high-end gated community in Greenwich, in a standalone house with a meticulously manicured garden. As the car stopped, I grabbed the mountain of gifts and followed Claire, my heart pounding so hard I thought it was going to leap out of my throat. She rang the doorbell. "Coming," a bright, cheerful voice called from inside. The door opened. A girl in a white sundress stood there, her long hair falling over her shoulders. She had a sweet smile and kind, laughing eyes. The moment I saw her face, my brain short-circuited. It felt like I'd been struck by lightning. The gifts slipped from my grasp, crashing to the porch. Chloe, I stammered, my lips trembling. I couldn't believe my own eyes. The girl in front of me was, without a doubt, my high school girlfriend, Chloe. The girl I'd shared stolen hot dogs with after late-night study sessions. The girl I'd sat beside on the bleachers, watching the stars, promising we'd apply to the same colleges. Chloe's smile froze on her face, her pretty eyes widening with shock and disbelief. "Ethan? What are you doing here?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Claire looked from me to Chloe, confused, then linked her arm with Chloe's. "You two know each other?" "Cousin, this is my boyfriend, Ethan." "Cousin?" My brain shut down completely. Chloe was Claire's cousin. What kind of small world was this? Chloe's face flushed red, then went pale. She managed a strained smile. "Oh, right. We went to high school together." "No way, what a coincidence." Claire, completely oblivious to the bizarre tension in the air, bent down to help me pick up the gifts. "Well, come on in. What are you waiting for?" I moved my legs mechanically, feeling like I was walking on clouds. My whole body felt disconnected, floaty. Laughter echoed from the living room. "Is that Claire with her new boyfriend?" "Let me get a look at him," a warm, motherly voice called out. I tried to pull myself together, following Claire into the living room and forcing my face into something resembling a normal expression. Several women of varying ages were seated on the couches. In the center sat an elderly woman with silver hair and a sharp, alert expression that had to be Grandma. Beside her were a middle-aged couple, undoubtedly Claire's parents. I quickly offer my greetings. "Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, Mom. It's a pleasure to meet you." Claire's mom was beaming. She took my hand and looked me up and down. "Oh, you must be Ethan. What a handsome young man. Please, seat." Just as I was about to lower myself onto the couch, a woman in a sharp power suit carrying a fruit platter walked out from the kitchen. She saw me and stopped dead in her tracks, the platter wobbling in her hands. And me? The moment I saw her face, I felt my soul try to exit my body. Megan, my college girlfriend. The woman who'd been my rival for student government president for 4 years straight. The woman who'd gotten wasted at graduation, grabbed my shirt, and cried, "I just don't get it. Why are you better than me at everything?" What was she doing here? Claire skipped over to her happily. "Megan, I bet your fruit salad is amazing. Come on, I want you to meet my boyfriend, Ethan." Megan? As in, cousin Megan. My entire perception of reality shattered right then and there. Megan's eyes were like daggers, raking across my face. A smirk that was more of a sneer played on her lips. Her voice was ice. "So it's you, Ethan. Well, well. It's a small world." The sheer amount of scorn and resentment in her tone was thick enough to cut with a knife. My scalp prickled. My hands and feet went cold. I felt like an idiot who had wandered into a den of black widows, all of them waiting to feast. One was my first love. The other was my arch-nemesis ex. And they were both my current girlfriend's cousins. Was I even going to survive this dinner? I was already calculating whether I could fake a burst appendix and have an ambulance haul me out of here. But apparently, fate decided I hadn't had enough excitement for one day. The sharp click-clack of high heels sounded from the staircase. A woman in a tight, fire engine red dress descended slowly, her hand gliding along the banister. Her figure was stunning, her every movement radiating a sultry confidence. She let out a delicate yawn and drawled, "Who's making all this noise in the middle of the day?" When her eyes landed on me, her seductive, almond-shaped eyes flew wide open. Her full, red lips formed a perfect O of surprise. Holy hell, Ethan! The world swam before my eyes. I nearly fainted on the spot. Ava, the woman I'd met at a bar 3 years ago. The one I'd had a purely adult arrangement with for 6 months. Claire bounced over and hooked her arm, pouting playfully. "Aunt Ava, you're awake. Come see my boyfriend. Isn't he handsome?" "Aunt Ava," I wasn't struck by lightning anymore. I'd been nuked. My first love is one cousin, my college rival is the other, and now my former friend with benefits is her aunt. I must have walked under a ladder on my way here. No, this had to be a nightmare. This couldn't possibly be real. Ava's gaze flickered over my face, then moved meaningfully to a pale-faced Chloe and an ice-cold Megan, before finally settling on the blissfully happy Claire at my side. Suddenly, she broke into a laugh, a rich, throaty sound that made her whole body shake. "Handsome, very handsome," she purred, gliding over to me. She reached out a hand, her nails painted a shocking crimson, and gently patted my cheek. Her breath was warm against my skin. "You've got good taste, kid." I was frozen solid, too terrified to move. The spot where she'd touched me burned like a brand. Claire's mom clapped her hands cheerfully. "All right, everyone, let's not just stand around. Time to eat. Ethan, I made my famous pot roast, just for you." I looked at this room full of family and want to cry. "Ma'am, you don't understand. What's on the menu tonight isn't pot roast. It's me." The massive mahogany dining table was packed. I was seated between Claire and her father, directly across from her grandmother. It was the seat of honor, but right now, it felt like an electric chair. To my left was my sweet, attentive girlfriend, Claire. Across from me sat my 3 exes, each with a different relationship to me, but all with a new, terrifying title. My first love, cousin Chloe, kept her head down, her long lashes hiding her expression, but the slight pinkness of her ears betrayed her inner turmoil. My arch-rival, cousin Megan, leaned back in her chair with her arms crossed, dissecting me with a critical gaze. Her eyes screamed defiance and contempt. And the most dangerous one of all, the sultry Aunt Ava. She was swirling a glass of red wine, watching me with rapt attention, like I was the star of a play that was about to take a very dark turn. The playful smirk on her lips sent a chill down my spine. "Ethan, don't be shy. Make yourself at home," Claire's father, a distinguished-looking man, said as he placed a piece of pot roast on my plate. "Claire tells me you're an investment? A young man with a bright future." I was floored by his kindness and quickly mumbled my thanks. "You're too kind, sir. It's just a small firm, enough to pay the bills." "Oh, Honey, you're selling him short, Ava said, swirling her wine. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the conversation and landed in everyone's ears. Our Ethan isn't just paying the bills. He's very capable. Aren't you, Ethan? She deliberately drew out my name, her tone soft and slow, dripping with an unmistakable intimacy. My heart seized. I almost choked on my food. Besides Claire and her parents, everyone else at this table knew exactly what kind of capable she was talking about. Chloe ducked her head even lower, practically trying to hide under the table. Megan let out a cold snort, not hesitating to throw me under the bus. And Ava, you must be mistaken. As I recall, back in college, Ethan's judgment wasn't so great. He had a habit of biting off more than he could chew and ending up with a bloody mouth. The more than he could chew was obviously her. Back then, she was student government vice president to my president. We fought over everything for 4 years, a rivalry that eventually, inexplicably, spilled over into the bedroom. Turns out, we were both too stubborn, too competitive. Being together was more exhausting than running a campaign, and it ended in a spectacular train wreck. My face burned with humiliation. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Claire finally sensed that something was off. She frowned, her delicate brow furrowed in confusion. Megan? And Ava? Why are you guys talking so weirdly? Did you know Ethan before today? And there it was, the million-dollar question. I felt 3 pairs of eyes lock on me like laser sights, 3 swords hanging over my head, ready to drop. How was I supposed to answer that? Say yes. Then how say no? Ava just called me by name with that sickeningly familiar tone. As sweat beaded on my forehead and my mind went blank, Chloe suddenly spoke up. Her voice was quiet, trembling slightly. Claire, I already told you. Ethan and I were classmates in high school. She lifted her head and met my eyes. Her expression was complicated. Embarrassment, shyness, and something else I couldn't quite read. A plea for help? I got the message instantly. She was trying to bail me out. I grabbed the lifeline. Right. Chloe and I went to high school together. And Megan was a senior when I was in college. We saw each other around at student government meetings, but we didn't really know each other. As for Ms. Ava. I looked at Ava, completely at a loss for what to call her. Ava felt way too casual. Ms. I didn't even know her last name. Felt too formal. Calling her Aunt Ava felt like swallowing glass. Ava burst out laughing, her eyes sparkling. Oh, don't be so formal. Just call me Ava. We met at a friend's party once. Chatted for a bit. A passing acquaintance, you could say. She casually dismissed our fiery 6-month affair as a passing acquaintance, simultaneously clearing the air and giving me an out. I let out a long, silent breath, feeling like I just survived a trip to the gallows. Oh, so that's it, Claire said, finally understanding. She clapped a hand to her chest. You guys scared me for a second. I thought there was some bad blood between you. She smiled her innocent smile and put another piece of food on my plate. Eat up. Look at you. You're so nervous you're sweating. Nervous? Honey, I was about to die of fright. I'd barely tasted the food. It was like chewing on cardboard. Claire's parents, however, seemed to love me. They asked about my family, my job, my income, my plans for the future. I answered each question seriously, presenting myself as a humble, polite, and completely eligible bachelor. But my eyes kept darting back to the 3 women across the table. They were 3 ticking time bombs, and any one of them could go off at any second. Halfway through the meal, the grandmother, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. Her voice was a little hoarse, but carried a firm, undeniable authority. Ethan, my stomach dropped. I immediately put down my fork and sat up straight. Yes, ma'am. Her eyes, which looked cloudy but were sharp as a hawk's, fixed on me. What is it you like about our Claire? The question silenced the table. Everyone stopped eating and looked at me, including the 3 ex-girlfriends. I could feel their gazes scrutinizing, curious, maybe even a little jealous. I collected myself, met the grandmother's eyes without flinching, and spoke from the heart. I love everything about her. I love her kindness, her innocence. I love that when she smiles, it looks like she has stars in her eyes. When I'm with her, the whole world just feels brighter. It wasn't just a line. It was the absolute truth. Hearing my confession, Claire blushed, her eyes shimmering with happiness. Her parents nodded in approval. Megan, however, let out a tiny, almost inaudible scoff. Ava raised an interested eyebrow. Chloe just kept her head down, her expression unreadable. Grandma was silent for a moment before asking her next question. So, when do you plan on marrying her? I froze. Were we really doing this right now? I instinctively glanced at Claire. She was looking at me, her expression a mixture of shyness and hopeful anticipation. A warmth spread through my chest, and a surge of courage washed over me. To hell with the ex-girlfriends. To hell with this minefield of a dinner. Claire was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I was going to marry her, period. I stood up, gave a respectful bow to everyone at the table, then turned to Claire and dropped to one knee. As the entire room gasped in shock, I pulled a small velvet box from my pocket. I opened it, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. Claire, I said, my voice shaking with emotion, I know this is sudden, but I can't wait another second. I love you. I want to build a home with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Time seemed to stop. Claire covered her mouth, tears instantly flooding her eyes. Her parents were stunned, but overjoyed. Chloe's head shot up, her face a mask of shock. Megan's face went white as a sheet, and the smile on Ava's face froze. Just as Claire started to nod through her tears, ready to say yes, a cold, sharp voice filled with fury echoed from the top of the stairs. I don't approve. Every head in the room snapped toward the staircase. A woman in casual loungewear stood there, her stunning beauty impossible to hide. Her features were strikingly similar to Claire's, but her aura was completely different. If Claire was warm sunshine, this woman was cold moonlight. She descended the stairs, each step landing like a hammer blow on my heart. My blood turned to ice in my veins. I forgot how to breathe. Claire cried out in surprise. Victoria, what are you doing down here? Victoria, sister. I stared at the face that had haunted my dreams for 2 years, the face that had caused me more pain than I thought possible. The world started to spin, then shattered around me. Victoria, the woman I dated for 3 years. The woman I was about to marry before she vanished without a word 2 years ago, leaving me to search for her like a madman for an entire year. My fourth ex-girlfriend, the one I loved the deepest and who hurt me the worst. She was Claire's sister, her actual, biological sister. Now I finally understood why Claire had never shown me a picture of her sister, only saying she was studying abroad. Victoria walked right up to me, looking down at me on one knee. Her beautiful eyes held no joy of reunion, only a deep-seated hatred and a cold, biting disgust. She glanced at the ring in my hand, then at her sobbing sister. Her words were deliberate, each one a poison dart. Ethan Carter, you liar. How dare you show your face in our house? Victoria's voice wasn't loud, but it was a bombshell that detonated in the already volatile living room. Sis, what? What are you talking about? Claire asked, completely lost, tugging on Victoria's sleeve. What liar? You and Ethan. You know each other, too? Know each other? We more than know each other. Victoria let out a bitter laugh, full of pain and mockery. She raised her hand and pointed a trembling finger at me. Claire, open your eyes and look. This man right here, the man you want to marry, is nothing but a worthless, lying piece of trash. He's not just my ex-boyfriend. He's your cousin Megan's ex-boyfriend, your cousin Chloe's ex-boyfriend, and he's your Aunt Ava's ex-boyfriend, too. Boom. Every word out of Victoria's mouth was a lightning strike, leaving everyone in the room scorched and speechless. Claire's parents shot to their feet, their faces etched with utter disbelief. Claire looked like she'd been physically struck. Her face drained of all color as she stared at me, then at her sister, then at the 3 other women at the table whose expressions ranged from horrified to furious. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. And me? I was still frozen on one knee, the ring box in my hand suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was over, completely and utterly over. My worst-case scenario had just come to life in the most spectacular, catastrophic way imaginable. The living room fell into a dead, suffocating silence. Every eye was on me, dozens of sharp, accusing glares threatening to slice me to ribbons. Chloe was pale as a ghost, biting her lip so hard it was a wonder it didn't bleed. Megan's face was a thundercloud of fury, her eyes practically shooting flames in my direction. Ava had dropped her playful facade. Her brow was furrowed, and her gaze was a complex mixture of surprise and something like understanding. Victoria, is what you're saying true? Claire's mom asked, her voice trembling. She looked from me to her own sister and her two nieces. Ava? Megan? Chloe? What? What is going on? Ava sighed, drained the last of her wine in one gulp, as if steeling herself, then stood up. She walked over to Victoria, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, and then faced her sister and brother-in-law. Her voice was laced with regret. Sis, Bill. I am sorry. What Victoria said. It's true. Megan stood up next, her face an icy mask. That's right. Ethan was my boyfriend in college. Finally, Chloe. She looked like she was on the verge of tears, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan and I went to high school together. We dated. One confession after another hammered down on Claire's heart. She swayed on her feet, nearly collapsing before her mother caught her. She looked at me, her once clear eyes now brimming with tears, filled with shock, betrayal, and a pain so deep it was terrifying. Ethan, she choked out, each word a struggle. Is it true? My sister, my aunt, my cousins. All of them. They were all. She couldn't finish, the tears finally breaking free and streaming down her face. I opened my mouth, but my throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. How could I explain this? What could I possibly say? That it was all a coincidence? That I had no idea? Who would believe me? Even I had to admit it sounded like a sick joke. Say something. Why aren't you saying anything? Victoria finally snapped. She lunged forward, snatched the ring box from my hand, and hurled it to the floor. You snake. Do you think the women in our family are that easy? After you were done with me, you moved on to my little sister. What the hell do you want? I didn't. I finally found my voice, scrambling to my feet. My eyes burned as I stared at her. Victoria, I swear to God, I had no ulterior motives with Claire. Before today, I didn't even know she was your sister. You didn't know? Victoria laughed, as if it were the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Ethan, do I look like a child to you? Do you really expect anyone to believe a coincidence like that? You dated one woman after another in my family, and you're telling me it wasn't on purpose. I had no defense. She was right. It was too much of a coincidence. So much so that even I couldn't explain it. Enough. The grandmother, who had been silent, slammed her cane on the floor with a heavy thud. The room instantly fell quiet. All eyes turned to the family matriarch. Her face was dark with anger, her sharp eyes sweeping over every single one of us before landing on me. Ethan, she said, her voice low and dangerous. You will tell me right now exactly what is going on. I took a deep breath. I knew that if I didn't clear this up right now, I wouldn't just lose Claire, I would be forever branded as the worst kind of monster. I forced myself to calm down, to organize the chaos in my head. I met the grandmother's gaze and spoke, my voice heavy. Grandma, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, and everyone. It was agony to get the last word out. I know that whatever I say right now, you probably won't believe me, but I have to explain. Chloe and I dated our senior year of high school. We were just kids. It was an innocent, puppy love kind of thing. After graduation, we went to colleges in different cities, and the distance just ended it. We broke up amicably. I glanced at Chloe. She was still looking down, her shoulders shaking slightly. Megan and I met in student government in college. We were both very competitive. We were rivals, but we were also together. We dated for a year, but every day was a battle. We were either fighting or about to start a fight. In the end, we were both just exhausted, and we went our separate ways. Megan snorted and turned her head away, but the tight clench of her fists betrayed her. As for Ava, I forced myself to look at her. We met at a party 3 years ago. I had just lost my first company. I was in a bad place. I drank too much. What we had was more of a mutual understanding between two adults. There were no strings, no real feelings involved. After about 6 months, we just drifted apart. Ava's expression flickered, but she didn't deny it. Finally, my gaze fell on Victoria. Looking at that face, so familiar yet so distant, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. In Victoria, my voice grew hoarse. She was the only woman in my life, besides Claire, that I ever seriously considered marrying. We were together for 3 years. From when I had nothing to when my career was just starting to take off. I thought we were going to make it. But 2 years ago, she just disappeared. She left without a word, vanished completely from my life. I spent a whole year looking for her. I couldn't find her anywhere. My voice broke, and my eyes welled up despite myself. Then, 6 months ago, I met Claire. She was like a light that pulled me out of that darkness. I love her. I truly, genuinely want to spend the rest of my life with her. I came here today with nothing but the sincerest intentions to ask for your blessing to marry her. I admit, I've had other relationships, but I was serious about every single one of them at the time. I never played with anyone's feelings, and I certainly never, ever imagined that you were all a family. It's all just a coincidence. A ridiculous, unbelievable coincidence that I can't explain, but it's the truth. When I finished, you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was stunned into silence by my soap opera-worthy life story. Claire's parents just stared at each other, their faces a canvas of shock and confusion. Claire looked at me, still crying, but the raw hatred in her eyes had softened, replaced by a deep, painful bewilderment. Only Victoria remained unmoved. Her expression was colder than ever, filled with scorn and disbelief. A coincidence, she said, her voice dripping with venom. Ethan, your ability to spin a story is as impressive as ever. Who's going to prove any of that? Do you think a few pretty words can wash away the fact that you're a player who juggled half the women in this room? I can. A voice spoke up, one that no one expected. It was Chloe. She lifted her head, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks, but her eyes were surprisingly steady. Grandma, Uncle Bill, Aunt Carol, she said, taking a shaky breath. What Ethan said is true. We broke up after high school because of the distance. It had nothing to do with him being a bad person. And I was the one who ended it. Everyone stared at her in astonishment. Even Megan looked surprised that Chloe would come to my defense. Me too, Ava said suddenly, shrugging as she scanned the room. What he and I had was exactly what he said it was. Two adults consenting. Nobody was lying to anybody. And honestly, for a guy who was down on his luck, he was decent enough. At least he didn't try to borrow money from me when we stopped seeing each other. 2 of my exes were actually defending me. I was as shocked as anyone. Victoria's face contorted with fury. You too, she said, looking at Chloe and Ava in disbelief. Are you insane? You're taking his side. Megan couldn't hold back any longer. She stood and pointed a finger at me. Don't let him fool you. This man is a master of sweet-talking. You think he didn't say the same things to me? And what happened? The second we graduated, he dumped me, saying we weren't compatible. It looked like an all-out ex-girlfriend civil war was about to break out. But Grandma's cane slammed down on the floor again. All of you be quiet. The old woman's authority silenced them all. She stood up and walked over to Victoria, her shrewd eyes boring into her granddaughter's. Victoria, you tell me, she said, enunciating each word carefully. 2 years ago, why did you leave without a word? The question was like a scalpel, cutting straight to the heart of the storm. Every single person in the room, including me, turned to look at Victoria. Yes, why did she just disappear? That question had been a thorn in my side for 2 years, a wound that ached in the dead of night. I had imagined a million scenarios. Was her family in trouble? Did she get sick and not want to be a burden? Or worse, had she never loved me at all? I'd talked to all her friends, gone to her hometown, even filed a missing persons report. Nothing. It was like she had vanished from the face of the earth. At her grandmother's question, Victoria's face went deathly pale. She started to tremble, her eyes darting around, unable to meet her grandmother's gaze or mine. At the time, I got accepted into a graduate program overseas. I wanted to focus on my career. I didn't want a relationship holding me back, she stammered, the excuse sounding weak even to her own ears. Is that so? Her grandmother's gaze sharpened. For a graduate program? You'd throw everything away and not even say goodbye? Victoria, you are always a terrible liar. Whenever you lie, you can't look me in the eye. Victoria's head sank lower, and she bit her lip so hard I thought it would bleed. The atmosphere in the room grew thick with tension. I stared at Victoria, my heart pounding in my chest. My gut was screaming at me that there was more to the story. A huge hidden secret. Sis, Claire pleaded, walking over and taking Victoria's hand. What really happened? What's the misunderstanding between you and Ethan? Just tell us. If you think he's a bad guy, yell at him, hit him, I don't care. But you can't just condemn him like this, condemn us like this, without telling us why. Misunderstanding. Victoria's head snapped up, the hatred in her eyes flaring. She ripped her hand away from Claire's and pointed at my nose, her voice rising to a hysterical shriek. There is no misunderstanding between us. Claire, wake up. You've been completely fooled by this man. He's a hypocrite, a fraud. She was so agitated she was gasping for breath, looking like she might pass out. Claire's mom rushed to her side. Victoria, calm down, honey. Just tell us what happened. Mom, stay out of this. Victoria pushed her away, her eyes red as she glared at me. Ethan, I'm asking you. 2 years ago, the night before I left, where were you? Who were you with? I froze. 2 years ago, the night before she left? My mind flashed back to that night of chaos and misery. It was my birthday. Victoria and I had plans to celebrate. I'd booked her favorite restaurant, bought the necklace she'd been wanting for months. I was going to propose to her. But that afternoon, my company imploded. A key partner betrayed me. The funding for a major project fell through, and the whole business was on the verge of bankruptcy. I was in a complete panic, calling everyone I knew, begging for money. A birthday was the last thing on my mind. I remember calling Victoria, telling her there was an emergency at work, and we had to cancel. She sounded disappointed, but she said, "It's okay, work comes first. You take care of it." And then what? Then I went out and got drunk. Very drunk. At a bar, I met another woman who was also having a terrible night. That woman, my eyes shot open in horror as I looked across the room at Ava, who had been watching the drama unfold. It was her. It was Ava. I remembered it all now. The night I met Ava was my birthday. The night before Victoria disappeared. So, a horrifying thought exploded in my brain. Could it be? Did Victoria come looking for me that night? Did she see me with Ava? I whipped my head back to look at Victoria. Her face was a mask of cold, desperate triumph. "You remember now, don't you?" she said, her voice a broken whisper. "You remember, Ethan?" "No." I yell, my voice raw. "Victoria, let me explain. My company was going bankrupt, I was drunk out of my mind, and Ava and I... Nothing happened." "Nothing happened?" Victoria laughed, but tears were streaming down her face. "I saw you. With my own eyes, I saw you with your arm around her. You took her back to our apartment. Ethan, that was our home. You brought another woman into our home." My mind went completely blank. She saw everything? I frantically tried to piece together the blurry memories of that night. I was blackout drunk, but I have a vague memory of bringing Ava back with me. She was also wasted, and I just thought she needed a place to crash safely. I looked at Ava, my eyes pleading for help. Ava's expression changed. She was frowning, clearly trying to remember, too. "Wait," she said suddenly. "That night, I think I had to go back with you. But I was so drunk, I passed out on your couch. When I woke up the next morning, I was still on the couch, fully dressed. You were asleep in the bedroom. Oh, nothing happened, right?" I asked desperately, clinging to that last shred of hope. Ava looked at me, then at Victoria, and after a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "I don't think anything happened. Did you hear that, Victoria?" I turned back to her, my voice filled with desperate relief. "We were innocent. It was all a misunderstanding." "Innocent?" Victoria's laugh was tragic. "Ethan, do you really think that matters now? Even if nothing happened that night, you still brought another woman home on your birthday, behind my back. That's a fact, isn't it? How was I ever supposed to trust you after that?" I was speechless. She was right. Even if we were innocent, from her perspective, I had already betrayed her. I couldn't begin to imagine the pain and despair of being betrayed by the person you love most on a day that was supposed to be special. "So, because of that, you just left? You didn't even leave a note, you just sentenced me to death." I stared at her, my heart aching so badly I could barely breathe. "Victoria, did you have that little faith in me? Was our 3-year relationship that fragile?" "Faith in you." The tears started falling again. "How could I have faith in you? I called you 100 times, and you didn't answer once. I sent you countless texts, and you never replied. I waited outside our apartment all night like an idiot. Ethan, if you had just given me one chance to get an explanation, we wouldn't be here today. I was stunned. Phone calls? Texts? Then it hit me. That night, I was so overwhelmed with the company disaster that I'd angrily shut off my phone. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting hangover and didn't even look at it. By the time I'd cleaned up the mess at work, 3 days had passed. When I finally turned my phone back on, it was flooded with missed calls and texts from Victoria. At the time, I just figured she was mad at me for canceling our date. When I tried to call her back, her phone was already turned off. And then, she was gone. So that was it. It was all because of a stupid misunderstanding. Because I turned off my stupid phone, we had missed each other. The moment the truth was revealed, I felt no relief. Only a crushing wave of regret and a profound, overwhelming sadness. I looked at Victoria, and she looked at me. In her eyes, I saw the same pain and regret that was tearing me apart. The living room was silent once more. Everyone was shocked by the story that had been buried for 2 long years. Chloe and Megan's faces were a mixture of complex emotions. They probably never imagined that Victoria and I had such a tragic history. Cease. Claire sobbed, not knowing who to comfort. She looked at me in my agony, then at her heartbroken sister, completely lost. In the suffocating silence, Claire's father, who had been quiet until now, let out a heavy sigh. Victoria, to be fair, this wasn't entirely Ethan's fault. His words were a bombshell. Everyone turned to stare at him. Victoria looked at her father in shock. Dad, what? What are you talking about? A look of guilt and resignation crossed Mr. Hayes's face. He glanced at his wife, then at Victoria, and said with great difficulty, Because I was the one who made you go abroad. I was the one who made you break up with Ethan. His confession was another bomb, sending shockwaves through the already devastated room. Dad, what are you saying? Victoria and Claire cried out in unison, their faces masks of disbelief. Mrs. Hayes went pale, tugging at her husband's sleeve as if to stop him. But finally, she just sighed in defeat. My own mind was a blank slate. I couldn't process what he was saying. Victoria's departure was her father's idea. What the hell was going on? Mr. Hayes looked from me to Victoria, his expression a storm of guilt, helplessness, and a father's grim resolve. Victoria, at this point, there's no reason to hide it anymore, he said gravely. 2 years ago, I had Ethan investigated. You two were serious, already talking about getting married. As your father, it's my duty to look out for your future. So I hired a private investigator to look into his family background and his company's situation at the time. He paused and looked at me with an apologetic expression. Ethan, I am sorry. I know that was a violation of your privacy. But what I found was not good. Your company was facing a massive crisis. Your funding was gone. Your partner had run off with the money, and you were on the brink of bankruptcy. And your family, they're a modest, working-class family. They couldn't offer you any help. I decided then and there that you couldn't give Victoria the life she deserved. She's been sheltered her whole life. I didn't want her to struggle with you. And right around that time, a professor at a university overseas, an old friend of mine, suggested that Victoria could go there for her master's degree. So I made the decision for her. I accepted on her behalf, and I told her she had to leave immediately and cut off all contact with everyone back home, especially you. Every word was a hammer blow to my heart. So that was the real truth. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a lack of love. It was a forced separation orchestrated by her own family. I looked at Victoria. She was completely frozen, staring at her father as if he were a stranger. So that night, when I came home crying, telling you and Mom that I saw Ethan with another woman. That's why you were so insistent that I leave right away. Victoria's voice was trembling uncontrollably. Mrs. Hayes turned away, dabbing at her eyes. She nodded, her voice thick with tears. Yes, your father said it was better to just rip the Band-Aid off. Since that man had already betrayed you, it was the perfect opportunity to make a clean break. We were only thinking of you, honey. Thinking of me? Victoria's laugh was a terrible, broken sound. For my own good, you orchestrated my breakup? For my own good, you stood by and watched me suffer for 2 years, letting me believe he was a monster. Dad, Mom, how could you be so cruel? she screamed. You ruined me. You ruined my life. With that, she collapsed to the floor, her body racked with gut-wrenching sobs. The sound was heartbreaking, filled with the agony of betrayal and years of bottled-up pain. The room was silent. Chloe, Megan, and Ava all wore complex expressions. They must have never imagined that behind all the romantic drama was a classic case of parents breaking up a happy couple. Claire was crying too, kneeling beside her sister, holding her. Cease. Please don't cry. Please. I stood there, my hands and feet like ice. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. The pain was so intense, I could barely breathe. All this time, I thought it was my fault. My mistake. My carelessness that led to our ending. I had blamed myself for 2 years. Hated myself for 2 years. And now I find out that I was just a pawn in their game. A clueless clown in a drama I didn't even know I was in. The real villain was the man I had once respected so much, Victoria's father. I slowly walked over to him and looked him straight in the eye. My voice was calm, eerily so. Sir, I just have one question for you. He couldn't meet my gaze. Go ahead. If my company hadn't been in trouble back then, if I had been a billionaire, would you have still done it? Mister. Hayes flinched as if I'd struck him. His face grew even paler. He was silent for a long time, so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he closed his eyes and forced out a single word. No. Heh. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Of course. In the end, it was because I was poor. Because I didn't have money. Because I couldn't give his daughter the happiness she deserved. How predictable. How pathetic. I turned my back on him, not giving him another glance. I walked over to where Victoria and Claire were crying on the floor and knelt beside them. I looked at Claire's tear-streaked face, at the deep worry and pain in her eyes, and my heart melted. Then I looked at Victoria. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face a mess. All her earlier anger and pride were gone. Looking at her now, whatever lingering resentment I had for her evaporated. She was a victim, too, deceived by her own family, betrayed by the man she loved, left to suffer alone in a foreign country for 2 years. We were both just casualties of this family's drama. I reached out my hand, wanting to comfort her like I used to stroke her hair. But my hand stopped midway, because I saw the look in Claire's eyes. There was understanding, sympathy, but beneath it all, there was a fresh layer of hurt and fear. I snapped back to reality. I was Claire's boyfriend now. Victoria was in the past. I slowly pulled my hand back. Then, I did something that surprised everyone. I stood up, walked to the center of the room, and bowed deeply to the grandmother and Claire's parents. Grandma, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, thank you for your hospitality today. My voice was still calm, but it had a new edge to it, a firm, steely resolve. I don't think any of us can finish this meal. And as for my marriage to Claire, let's put that on hold for now. Claire's head shot up, her eyes wide with shock. Ethan, you... I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on her father. Sir, you were right. 2 years ago, I wasn't worthy of marrying Victoria. I didn't have money, I couldn't protect her. But now, I straightened my back, my gaze sweeping across the room before landing back on him. I am not the same man I was 2 years ago. In these 2 years, I have worked my butt off every single day. My company didn't just recover. It's bigger and more successful than ever. I might not be a billionaire, but I am confident enough and capable enough to give the woman I love the life she wants, free from anyone else's control or manipulation. My words were firm and clear. Mr. Hayes's face turned pale, then red. Megan's eyes flashed with a surprising glimmer of respect. She probably never thought the guy she used to look down on would have this kind of backbone. Ava just smirked, a look of genuine appreciation in her eyes. But I said, my tone shifting as I finally turned to Claire, my expression softening completely, that ability, that confidence, I want to reserve it for my one and only future wife. Claire, I'm sorry. I walked over to her and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. What happened today was incredibly unfair to you. I don't want you to be caught in the middle between me and your family. And I certainly don't want you to live in your sister's shadow. So we need some time. We both need to cool off. And you need to think, really think about what you want. Do you want to choose me and throw your whole family into chaos? Or do you want to let me go? With that, it gave her one last long look. Then, I turned around and walked toward the door without looking back. I didn't dare look at anyone's face. I didn't dare listen to Claire's desperate cries behind me. Ethan, don't go. Ethan. I was afraid that if I turned back, I would never be able to leave. This farce had to end. Or rather, it was time for me to start a new chapter. I don't know how I managed to drive out of that neighborhood. My mind was a tangled mess, a chaotic jumble of ex-girlfriends who were now my girlfriend's sister, aunt, and cousins. The kind of insane plot you'd only find in a cheap novel had just played out in my life. And to top it all off, a 2-year-old drama of betrayal, misunderstanding, and parental sabotage had been dredged up. My entire 30 years on this planet hadn't been as wild as the last few hours. My phone buzzed violently on the passenger seat. Claire's name flashed on the screen again and again. I didn't answer. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. I drove to the coast, pulled over at a scenic overlook, rolled down the window, and lit a cigarette. The cold ocean breeze whipped into the car, a welcome shock to my system that cleared some of the fog from my brain. What was I supposed to do now? Give up on Claire? The thought lasted less than a second before I crushed it. I loved her. She had been the light that pulled me out of the darkness of the last 2 years. Her kindness, her purity, her warmth, I couldn't let that go. But staying with her meant facing a mountain made up of her family, an ex-girlfriend Avengers team, ready to assemble against me. Especially Victoria. She had loved me, but now she hated me. Today's revelations would only pour gasoline on that fire. She would do anything to keep Claire and me apart. And then there was her father, a man who would stop at nothing to ensure his daughter's happiness, even if it meant destroying someone else's. If he could do it to me and Victoria, then he could do it to me and Claire now. It was an impossible situation, a total checkmate. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration and stubbed out the cigarette. Just then, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Claire. It was an unknown number. I frowned and answered. Hello, it's me. The voice on the other end was lazy, sultry, and familiar. It was Ava. I was surprised. Ava, what's up? What? I can't call you just a call, she purred, a hint of laughter in her voice. You looked like a kicked puppy when you left. I felt sorry for you. Thought I'd check in. Thanks for your concern. I'm fine, I said flatly. TSK, still no fun. Ava clicked her tongue. Then her tone shifted, becoming serious. Ethan, I'm calling because I need to tell you something. What is it? It's about Victoria. My heart clenched. What about her? She just had a massive fight with her dad. Now she's locked herself in her room and won't come out. Claire's outside her door, crying her eyes out. Ava said, a genuine note of worry in her voice. I was silent. Logically, I knew I should stay far away from that family. But hearing about Victoria and Claire, my gut twisted. Ava, what are you trying to say? I'm saying that if you really love Claire, if you really want to be with her, then stop acting like a coward and hiding. Ava's voice grew sharp. That speech you gave at the house was great. A lot of guts. But talk is cheap. What are you going to do? You think walking out and leaving the problem for Claire to solve is what's best for her? Let me tell you something. You're throwing her to the wolves. Right now, she's alone, facing a stubborn father, a sister on the verge of a breakdown, and a bunch of us ex-girlfriends watching her every move. Do you really think she can handle that by herself? Ava's words were like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head. She was right. I thought I was being mature, giving everyone space. In reality, I was just running away, leaving all the pressure and the pain for Claire to deal with alone. You're right, I said, taking a deep breath and starting the car. I'm on my way. That's more like it, Ava said, sounding pleased. But don't come here just yet. The house is a war zone right now. You showing up will only make things worse. So what do you want me to do? Come to my place. There are some things I need to tell you in private. About Victoria, and about the family. Her tone was cryptic. I hesitated. Going to an ex-girlfriend's apartment alone seemed like a bad idea. But my gut told me Ava knew something important. Okay, send me the address. Half an hour later, I was standing outside Ava's apartment. She lived in a sleek, modern high-rise, her place decorated with an artist's touch. When she opened the door, she was wearing a silk robe, a glass of red wine in her hand. She leaned against the doorframe, looking me up and down. Come on in. I followed her into the living room and sat stiffly on the edge of the couch. Drink? No, thanks. Ava, what did you want to tell me? I asked, getting straight to the point. She didn't beat around the bush. She sat on the couch across from me, crossed her legs, and swirled her wine. Ethan, do you really think Victoria hates you just because of that misunderstanding 2 years ago? I frowned. Isn't that why? Of course not, Ava said, shaking her head, a flicker of pity in her eyes. The misunderstanding was just the spark. What really broke her was something else. What? My heart was in my throat. Ava looked me straight in the eye and said, enunciating every word, after you two broke up, she found out she was pregnant. The world exploded. Pregnant? Victoria was pregnant with my child? That's impossible. I choked out. We were always careful. There's no such thing as 100%. Ethan, Ava said, her expression grim. She found out about 2 months after she got to Europe. She was all alone in a foreign country, reeling from what she thought was a double betrayal from her family and the man she loved. Can you even imagine how hopeless she must have felt? I couldn't speak. A single thought screamed through my mind. I had a child I never even knew existed. So where's the baby? My voice was a raw, trembling whisper. Ava's gaze softened. She set down her wine glass. Her mental state was a mess, and she had a very difficult pregnancy. There was an accident. She lost the baby. The room went black. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. My heart felt like it had been stabbed. Over and over, the pain so intense it stole my breath. I had lost a child, and I never even knew. All this time, I had resented Victoria, thinking she had abandoned me. So she hates you, Ava said softly. She hates you for the betrayal, for leaving her alone, and most of all, she hates you because she blames you for losing the baby. That hate is what got her through the last 2 years. She worked herself to the bone, studied like a maniac, all for the day she could come back here and make you pay. She just never expected to come back and find you with her little sister. I buried my face in my hands, my shoulders shaking. Regret, guilt, a grief so profound it felt like a physical weight. It all came crashing down on me. What had I done? I hadn't just hurt Victoria. I had lost our child. Ethan. Ava came and sat next to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. And I'm certainly not telling you this so you can go running back to Victoria. I looked up, my eyes red and blurry. I'm telling you this so you understand that you and Victoria are over. It's impossible. It's not just a misunderstanding and some resentment between you two anymore. It's the ghost of an innocent life. The only thing you can do now, the only right thing you can do, is to be there for Claire. I'll talk to Victoria, and Chloe and Megan aren't unreasonable people. But none of that will matter unless you step up and show some damn commitment. You have to show everyone in that family that you love Claire and that you will not be scared away. You have to use your actions to make up for the mistakes of the past and earn their forgiveness. Ava's words were a lighthouse in the storm of my mind, illuminating the only path forward. She was right. I couldn't change the past. All I could do was fight for my future. Fight for the person right in front of me. I slowly stood up and bowed deeply to Ava. Ava, thank you. Thank you for telling me the truth. And thank you for snapping me out of it. When I straightened up, the confusion and despair were gone from my eyes, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I know what I have to do. I didn't go looking for Claire after leaving Ava's. It wasn't the right time. Emotion wasn't going to solve this. I needed a plan, a strategy to break the stalemate and win back the trust of Claire and her family. Ava was right. The key wasn't begging Victoria for forgiveness or proving my net worth to her father. The key was Claire. If I could get Claire to stand firmly by my side, everything else was manageable. But why should she? After the bomb I dropped on her life, I love you wasn't going to cut it. I had brought nothing but chaos and pain to her and her family. I had to prove with actions that I was worth the fight. I went back to my office and locked myself in. I didn't sleep all night. The next morning, I called my assistant. Leo, I need you to do 3 things for me, I said, my voice hoarse but my mind clear. First, contact the foundation we work with. I want to make a $5 million donation to the education fund for underprivileged girls in Claire's name. Make sure it's anonymous from me. It comes from her and her alone. Second, transfer all my shares in the Star Harbor real estate project to Victoria Hayes. Yes, you heard me. Victoria. Victoria. Do it immediately and don't ask questions. Third, I want you to find out everything you can about the company Megan Hayes works for. I want to know about the project she's managing, her biggest competitors, and any problem she's facing. My assistant was speechless. Mr. Carter, what is all this? Just do it, I said, hanging up. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. Each move was carefully calculated. The donation for Claire wasn't a bribe. It was to show her that my love for her extended to the values we shared, our desire to do good in the world. The project for Victoria was my atonement. I knew no amount of money could bring back her child or fix what was broken between us. This was a final act of closure. It was me telling her that all I felt for her now was guilt, not love. It was a clean break. As for Megan, I wasn't trying to sabotage her. I was going to help her. I knew Megan. She was ambitious, competitive, and cared more about her career than anything. If I could give her a leg up when she needed it most, it might be enough to turn an enemy into a neutral party. After setting all that in motion, I waited. I let my gifts do the talking for me. The wait was agonizing. I threw myself into work, tried to numb the ache of not knowing, not seeing Claire. 3 days later, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. A timid, hesitant voice came through the line. Hello? Is this Ethan? It's Chloe. My heart skipped a beat. It was starting. Chloe, it's me. Ethan, I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. We received the money for my mom's surgery. Thank you so much. I had almost forgotten. In my initial planning to meet the family, I prepared a cashier's check for $50,000 for her mother's medical bills. In the chaos, I never gave it to her, but I must have left it with the other gifts. Don't mention it. It's the least I could do. No, it's a huge deal for my family, she said, her voice cracking. Ethan, I know you're a good person. What happened between us was my fault. You and Claire. You have to make it work. I'll try to talk to my cousins for you. A warmth spread through my chest after I hung up. Chloe was still the same kind-hearted girl I remembered. Phase 1 was a success. 2 days later, I got a second call. It was Megan. Her voice was as cold as ever, but the hostility was gone. It was you, wasn't it? What was me? I played dumb. My project's main competitor just had their primary investor pull out. They'd withdrawn from the bidding process. Don't tell me that's a coincidence, she said, her tone a mix of suspicion and something else. I smiled. We don't have to be enemies just because we couldn't be lovers, right? There was a long silence on the other end. I owe you one, she said, and then hung up. It was just 4 words, but I knew. I had cracked the toughest nut. Now, only the 2 most important and most difficult people remained. Victoria and Claire. Just as I was planning my next move, there was a knock on my office door. My assistant, Leo, poked his head in, looking nervous. Mr. Carter, there's a woman downstairs to see you. She says her name is Victoria Hayes. I shot up from my chair. She came to me. Send her up, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. A few minutes later, Victoria was standing in my doorway. She wore a black power suit and subtle makeup. She looked more composed than the last time I'd seen her, but the exhaustion was still etched on her face. She walked to my desk and slapped a file down in front of me. Ethan, what is the meaning of this? I glanced at the file. The cover read, Equity Transfer Agreement. It means what it says, I said, looking at her evenly. I owed you. Owed me, she scoffed. You think money can fix what you did to me? You think this could buy back the child we lost? Her voice rose, her eyes instantly turning red. No, I said, my voice firm. I know it can't. I'm not giving you this to ask for your forgiveness. And I'm certainly not trying to get back together with you. This is about closure. Victoria, we can't go back. The person I love is Claire. This agreement is the last thing I can do for you for what we lost. After this, we don't owe each other anything. Victoria froze. She stared at me, searching my face for any hint of deception or lingering affection. She found none. My expression was open, honest, and final. After a long moment, a broken smile touched her lips, and the last flicker of hope in her eyes died. We don't owe each other anything, she repeated, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She picked up the file, turned, and walked toward the door. Her back was straight, but she looked so terribly alone. Just as she reached the door, she stopped. Without turning around, she said softly, Ethan, you should go see Claire. She's been torturing herself these past few days. Those words were the key that unlocked the final gate. I bolted from my office, not even grabbing my jacket. As I sped across town, only one thought consumed me. I have to see Claire. Right now. But when I pulled up to the Hayes' house, I was met with a scene of chaos. A moving truck was parked in a driveway. Workers were hauling furniture, appliances, and boxes out of the house. A cold dread washed over me. I jumped out of the car and grabbed one of the movers. "Hey, is this family moving out?" The man nodded. "Yep. Heard they're moving overseas. They sold the house." Moving overseas? Sold the house? It felt like a lightning strike. My blood ran cold. Claire was leaving? Was she going to disappear, just like her sister did? No, not again. I ran into the house like a madman. The living room was in disarray, mostly empty. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes were directing the movers, looking exhausted and relieved. They froze when they saw me. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Mrs. Hayes asked, avoiding my eyes. "Where is she? Where's Claire?" I grabbed her arm, my voice raw with panic. She's upstairs, packing." I let go of her and sprinted up the stairs. Claire's bedroom door was ajar. I threw it open. The room was bare, except for a single suitcase on the floor. Claire was kneeling with her back to me, packing the last of her clothes. She looked so small, so fragile. She flinched at the sound of the door, but didn't turn around. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "You came. Why are you leaving?" I walked up behind her, my voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wasn't going to leave without a word," she said, slowly getting to her feet and turning to face me. She had lost weight. Her bright eyes were red and swollen. She gave me a sad smile. "I left a letter for you at your office." "I don't want a letter. I want you." I closed the distance between us and pulled her into a desperate hug, holding her so tight I thought I might break her. "Claire, please don't go. Please. You have no idea how much I've missed you." Her body trembled in my arms. She didn't push me away. She buried her face in my chest, and all the pain and fear she'd been holding back came pouring out in a flood of tears. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My sister, my parents, they wanted to break up with you. They're taking me abroad, and they said we're never coming back. I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. But what can I do? What am I supposed to do?" She cried with a raw, heartbreaking desperation, like a lost child. My own heart felt like it was being ripped to shreds. I cupped her face in my hands, wiping away her tears. "Claire, look at me." She looked up, her eyes swimming. "Listen to me. From this moment on, you don't have to worry about anything. You just have to answer one question. Do you still love me? Are you still willing to be with me? No matter how hard it gets, no matter who's against us, are you willing to face it all with me?" My gaze was intense, unwavering. Claire stared back at me, her sobs subsiding. She searched my eyes, looking for any hint of doubt. But all she found was absolute certainty and a love as deep as the ocean. After a long moment, she nodded, her voice hoarse but clear. I love you, Ethan. I never stopped loving you." Her answer filled me with enough courage to take on the entire world. I took her hand and pulled her toward the door. "Come with me." "Where are we going?" she asked, confused. "Somewhere no one can ever tear us apart again." We walked down the stairs, hand in hand. In the living room, her parents, Victoria, Megan, Chloe, Ava, and even her grandmother were all gathered. They all stared at our joined hands, their expressions a mixture of shock, anger, and resignation. Mr. Hayes's face was dark with fury. He stepped in front of us, blocking our path. "Ethan, what do you think you're taking my daughter?" "Sir," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I'm taking her where she belongs." "Insolent boy," he sputtered. "Claire, you get over here right now. If you walk out that door with him today, you are no longer a part of this family." Claire flinched, her hand starting to pull away. I squeezed it tighter. I stepped in front of her, shielding her, facing her entire family alone. "Sir, you don't have to threaten her with that," I said, a bitter smile on my lips. "Because as of today, Claire is my wife, and the only family name she'll be taking is mine." Then, to everyone's utter astonishment, I reached in my pocket and pulled out 2 small, red booklets. I held them up for everyone to see. 2 marriage certificates. The photos inside showed me and Claire grinning from ear to ear. When did you?" Mr. Hayes pointed a trembling finger at me, speechless. "This morning, I said simply. Before I came here, this was my final move. Instead of waiting for them to pass judgment on me, I had taken matters into my own hands. I had called Claire the day before and told her my plan. I asked her if she would dare to sneak off and marry me. She had hesitated for only a second before saying yes. You rebellious girl. Mister. Hayes lunged forward, his hand raised to strike Claire. I moved faster, grabbing his wrist. Sir, she's my wife now. My family. I will not allow anyone to lay a hand on her, I said, my voice dropping, my eyes turning to ice. He recoiled, stunned by the look on my face. Just then, the grandmother spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. Let him take her. Everyone turned to the old woman in shock. She slowly walked toward us, leaning on her cane. She glanced at the marriage certificates in my hand, then looked me deep in the eye. Ethan, she said, her voice raspy. You remember what you said today? If you ever do anything to hurt our Claire, I don't care where you run. This family will hunt you down. Her gaze was calm, but it held a terrifying authority. I knew it was her final warning, and her final acceptance. I bowed deeply to her. Grandma, you have my word. Then I took Claire's hand, and under the stunned, complicated gazes of her family, we walked out of the house that had been the stage for my worst nightmares and my greatest victory. The sun was shining. It warmed our skin and glinted off the bright, defiant red of the certificates in our hands. Claire and I eloped, not to some remote corner of the world, but to my penthouse apartment overlooking the city. The day after we got our license, I threw Claire the lavish, romantic proposal she deserved. In a living room filled with roses and candles, I got down on one knee again and placed the diamond ring, the same one Victoria had thrown, on Claire's finger. Marry me, wife, I said. She sobbed and nodded, a messy, beautiful combination of laughter and tears. Without her family's interference, our life was blissfully sweet. We cuddled on the couch watching movies, experimented with new recipes in the kitchen, and took long walks by the river at sunset. She told me embarrassing stories from her childhood, and I told her about the struggles of starting my own company. We filled in the gaps of each other's pasts and dreamed about our future. It was almost as if the dramatic family showdown had been a bad dream. But I knew it wasn't over. The relationship with her family was still a tightly wound cord, ready to snap. Sure enough, a few days into our peaceful new life, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Megan. She strode in wearing a sharp suit and killer heels, exuding power. Well, hiding your blushing bride away in your castle, she said, scanning my 3,000-square-foot apartment with a smirk. Claire was in the kitchen, humming as she made lunch. Emotion from Megan Tulseed. What brings you here? What? Not happy to see me, she raised an eyebrow. Just checking on my naive little cousin who got herself kidnapped. Is that a crime? Of course not, I smiled. Ethan, I'm not here to reminisce, Megan said, her playful tone vanishing. I'm here with a warning. What is it? My uncle, Claire's father, is using every connection he has to crush your company, she said, her expression serious. He wants to bankrupt you. He wants to show Claire that you can't protect her. My stomach tightened. I knew it was coming, but I hadn't expected him to be so ruthless. He was using his political influence, a weapon my private company had no defense against. I see, I said, my face betraying none of my concern. Megan looked surprised. That's it? That's your reaction? Do you have any idea how serious he is? Several of your biggest projects have been shut down, haven't they? And the banks are suddenly rejecting your loan applications. Yes. And you're so calm? She pressed. Aren't you afraid of losing everything you've worked for? I looked at her and smiled. I am, but I'm more afraid of losing Claire. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the sprawling city below. You know, Megan, 2 years ago when I lost Victoria, I thought I had lost love. But now I realize what I really lost was the right to choose. Because I was poor, because I was weak, I had no power. I just had to stand there and watch as the woman I loved was taken from me. So for the past 2 years, I've been working like a madman to build this. Not for the money, not for the status, but so that the next time I found someone I loved, I would have the power to tell the entire world to back off. Now I've found Claire, and your uncle. He is the entire world. This is a fight I can't afford to lose. My voice was quiet, but Megan heard the unbreakable resolve beneath it. She was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice held a note of grudging respect. What do you need me to do? I turned, surprised. You're going to help me? Don't get the wrong idea, she said, looking away. I don't agree with my uncle's methods. And besides, I'm curious to see what you're really made of. And most importantly, she added, I don't want to see Claire cry. I smiled a real, genuine smile. Thank you, Megan. Save it. Just tell me what you need. I thought for a moment. I need you to give me a meeting with someone. Someone your uncle can't touch. Who? I looked at her and said the name. Megan's eyes widened in shock. Meanwhile, back at the Hayes house, the entire family was living under a cloud of gloom. Mr. Hayes was pulling every string he had to ruin me, waiting for the news of my company's collapse. Mrs. Hayes cried every day, worried sick about her daughter. Victoria had locked herself in her room, barely eating, wasting away to skin and bones. One day, Ava and Chloe went to see her. Victoria, you have to stop this. Is one man really worth destroying yourself over? Ava asked, her heart aching for her niece. Victoria didn't answer, just stared blankly at the ceiling. Chloe sat on the bed and took her hand. Cousin, he's not a bad person. He really loves Claire. Love. Victoria laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. What is his love worth? He loved you. He loved Megan. He loved me. He loves everyone. The only thing you can rely on in this world is money and power, she said, her eyes turning cold and hard. My father was right. I was just too naive. If Ethan Carter wants to ruin my life, I'll ruin his first. I'll make sure he loses everything. I'll make Claire see what kind of loser she chose to marry. She sat up abruptly, a crazed light in her eyes. She grabbed her phone and made a call. Hello, Mr. Davison. It's Victoria Hayes. Regarding the Southside development deal. My company, Apex Holdings, would like to partner with you. That's right. We have only one goal, to destroy Ethan Carter's Horizon Tech at any cost. Ava and Chloe looked at each other, their faces filled with alarm. Victoria was declaring all-out war. The storm that had started with a disastrous family dinner was now escalating into a brutal corporate battle, with countless fortunes and futures on the line. And me, the man in the eye of the hurricane, was calmly helping his wife learn how to make her favorite dessert, tiramisu. Honey, how much sugar does this need? Silly, it's on the recipe. Look at this whipped cream. Am I a pro or what? Hey, stop messing around. You got it on my face. The kitchen was filled with laughter and light. Outside, the storm was about to break. The storm hit harder and faster than I'd expected. Caught between the political pressure from Claire's father and the corporate assault from my vengeful ex, Victoria, my company, Horizon Tech, was facing its biggest crisis ever. Mr. Hayes sicked every regulatory agency in the state on me. Fire inspections, tax audits, you name it. Projects were halted, assets frozen. Victoria, meanwhile, teamed up with my biggest competitor, Apex Holdings, and launched a full-scale attack on the stock market. They bought up shares, shorted our stock, and engaged in a suicidal price war over the new Southside AI campus project. The company was in chaos. Executives quit, employees panicked, and the bank started calling in their loans. In 2 weeks, Horizon Tech lost almost half its value. I became the joke of the business world. Everyone said I'd lost my mind over a woman and was about to lose my shirt. Claire watched the news every day, so stressed she could barely eat. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. She'd say, clinging to me, her eyes red from crying. If it weren't for me, my dad and my sister wouldn't be doing this to you. Maybe we should go apologize? I can beg them to stop. I'd stroke her hair, my heart aching for her. Silly girl, this has nothing to do with you, I'd say, kissing her forehead. This is a war between men. You stay out of it. Besides, who said I'm going to lose? I'd look at her then, a confident glint in my eye. And it was true. On the surface, I was cornered. But in reality, everything was going according to plan. Mr. Hayes and Victoria thought they were in control. What they didn't know was that I was playing a completely different game. I let them push me back, letting them pour all their resources into this single-minded attack. They were in the spotlight. My real weapon was still waiting in the wings. The final battle came on the day of the bidding for the Southside AI campus. It was a multi-billion-dollar project, the biggest in the city's history. Whoever won would dominate the tech landscape for the next decade. It was my final stand against Victoria and her father. To win, Victoria and Apex had amassed a war chest of nearly $5 billion. My company, Horizon Tech, had less than $500 million left. No one thought I stood chance. The bidding hall was filled with the city's most powerful people. I walked in with Claire on my arm. Every head turned. I saw pity, curiosity, and a lot of smug satisfaction. Claire's father sat on the judging panel. He just snorted when he saw me, his eyes filled with contempt. Victoria sat across from me, representing Apex. She gave me a cold, triumphant smirk. "Ethan, I'm surprised you even bothered to show up," she whispered. "Here to watch your own execution." I ignored her and squeezed Claire's hand, giving her a reassuring smile. The bidding began. Round 1, technical proposals. We were evenly matched. Round 2, qualifications. Both companies passed. Then came the final decisive round, the financial bid. The announcer's voice boomed. "Will both companies please reveal your final bids?" The room held its breath. Victoria confidently held up her card. The number was staggering, $8.8 billion. It was a lowball bid, a price so low they would barely make a profit. They were willing to lose money just to make sure I lost the contract. A collective gasp went through the room. Everyone looked at me like I was already a dead man. Victoria's smile was predatory. She could taste victory, but I just smiled back. Then, as everyone watched in stunned silence, I slowly raised my card. On it was a single number. $1. I was bidding $1 for a multi-billion-dollar project. The room erupted. "He's lost his mind. Is this a joke? $1? What a sore loser. If you can't compete, just stay home. Don't turn this into a circus." On the panel, Claire's father slammed his hand on the table, his face purple with rage. "This is absurd. Security, remove this man from the premises." Even Victoria was stunned. She stared at me, first in shock, then with a look of utter disgust. "Wow, Ethan, you really are pathetic. I thought you'd at least go down fighting, not as a clown." But just as everyone was writing me off, a calm, powerful voice cut through the noise. "I find this bid very interesting." The speaker was the head of the panel, the most powerful man in the room, Mayor Thompson. The man Megan had gotten me a meeting with. The entire hall fell silent. Claire's father stared at him. "Mr. Mayor, what do you mean? This is clearly a mockery of the process." The mayor ignored him and looked at me. "Mr. Carter, would you care to explain your bid?" I stood up and addressed the room. "Honorable Mayor, members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, my bid of $1 is not a joke. It is not an act of desperation. It is a statement. A project of this magnitude, a project that will define the future of our city, should not be measured in dollars and cents. The AI campus is about progress, about innovation, about creating a better future for our children. It should not be a tool for corporate greed. Horizon Tech is willing to build this campus for a symbolic fee of $1. We pledge that all profits generated from this project, beyond basic operating costs, will be reinvested into research and development. Furthermore, we will establish a government-supervised foundation to support local tech startups. We are not asking for money. We are asking for a chance to serve this city and contribute to our shared future." My voice echoed through the silent hall, filled with passion and conviction. The crowd was stunned. Their expressions shifted from scorn to shock, and then to admiration. Victoria's face went white. She finally understood my strategy. I hadn't been fighting her for the contract. I had been fighting for the moral high ground. Her father was speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Mayor Thompson stood up and began to applaud. "Well said, son. Well said. That is the kind of vision and integrity our city needs." He looked out the crowd and announced, "I believe we have a clear winner. The contract for the South Side AI campus goes to Horizon Tech." The hall erupted in thunderous applause. Claire threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. I looked across the room at the pale, defeated faces of Victoria and her father, and I raised my and Claire's joined hands in victory. The war was over. I had won. The outcome of the bidding sent shockwaves through the city. Horizon Tech was back from the dead. Our stock price skyrocketed overnight. Apex Holdings, having overextended itself in its bid to destroy me, was now facing a catastrophic financial crisis. Victoria, as the architect of the failed strategy, was forced to resign from her position. And Claire's father, for his blatant abuse of power, was quietly forced into an early retirement. The mighty Hayes family had fallen. I didn't press my advantage. My goal was never to destroy them, only to protect my love for Claire. A week later, I got a call from the grandmother. "Ethan, bring Claire home for dinner." Her voice was tired, but it held the weight of a truce. I arrived at the house with Claire, the trunk of my car once again filled with gifts. The atmosphere this time was not hostile, but somber. Claire's parents sat on the couch, looking older and grayer. They gave us a complicated look, but said nothing. Chloe offered a shy smile. Megan gave me a look that said, "Not bad, Carter." Ava raised her glass to me from across the room. Victoria stayed in her room. The grandmother broke the silence. "Ethan, what happened before?" Our family was in the wrong. I was stunned. I never expected them to admit fault. "We misjudged you," she continued with a heavy sigh. "We lost. Fair and square." "Grandma, please," I said quickly. "There are no winners or losers. We're all family." "Family, Mr." Hayes snorted, but a sharp look from his mother-in-law silenced him. "Claire," the grandmother said, her voice softening as she took her granddaughter's hand. "You've been through a lot." "I'm okay, Grandma," Claire whispered, her eyes welling up. "You're a good girl," she said, slipping a beautiful jade bracelet from her own wrist onto Claire's. "This is a family heirloom, passed down to the eldest daughter-in-law. It was meant for your sister, but now it's yours." Tears streamed down Claire's face. She knew what this meant. It was a symbol of their final, unconditional acceptance. That long-overdue family dinner was filled with a strange mix of emotions. Mr. Hayes even begrudgingly put a piece of food on my plate. Megan and Ava teased me like a brother-in-law, asking when the wedding was. Only Victoria was missing. The stories with my 4 ex-girlfriends had finally reached their epilogue. The love, the hate, the drama. It was all being put to rest. After dinner, I walked with Claire in the garden. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, leaning her head on my shoulder, "for everything." I held her close. We're husband and wife, silly. Just then, a window on the second floor opened. Victoria stood there, watching us. She still looked fragile, but the hatred was gone from her eyes. She looked at us for a long time. Then, she gave a slow, deliberate nod. It was a silent message, but I understood it completely. It was forgiveness. It was a blessing. I nodded back. The long, painful chapter between us was finally closed. I turned to my wife, to the beautiful, smiling woman beside me, and kissed her. The future was still a long road, but with her by my side, I knew I could face anything. After all, I had survived her family, the most formidable team of ex-girlfriends in history. What else could the world possibly throw at me? With the family truce declared, our wedding planning went into high gear, becoming a joint operation. As Ava put it, my niece is getting married, and it's going to be the event of the century. We can't let you get away with anything less, pretty boy. And so, under the watchful eyes of my 4 exes, our wedding became an epic production. Chloe flew with Claire to Paris for a custom-designed gown. Her elegant taste was impeccable. Claire looked like an angel. Megan, with her connections, booked the entire rooftop garden of the most luxurious hotel in the city. Ava, the master of ambience, planned every detail, from the music to the floral arrangements. Even Victoria, who had kept her distance, had a final test for me on the wedding day. When I arrived with my groomsmen to pick up my bride, I expected a gauntlet of challenges. Instead, the path was clear, right up to Claire's bedroom door, where Victoria stood guard. "So, you want to marry my sister," she said, her arms crossed. "Answer 3 questions. Here we go. The final boss." "First," she said, her eyes locking with mine, "if Claire and I were both drowning, who would you save first?" The classic impossible question. Before I could answer, Megan rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Victoria, are you 12? Ava laughed. "I say we throw Ethan in too. Let them have a family reunion in the water." I ignored them, looked Victoria in the eye, and answered seriously, "I would never let that happen. But if it did, I would save you both. No matter what." She seemed to consider this. "Second question. If you and Claire have a fight, whose fault is it?" "Mine," I said without hesitation. "Oh, yes," I said firmly. because letting her get upset would be my greatest mistake. A ripple of laughter came from inside the room. Even Victoria's lips twitched into a smile. Last question, she said, her expression turning serious again. Ethan, what do you love about Claire? It was the same question her grandmother had asked. I looked at the closed door, picturing the woman I loved on the other side. I love everything about her. I love her kindness, her optimism, the way she lights up a room just by smiling. But I also love her insecurities, her vulnerabilities, the way she gets jealous, the way she cries. She's not perfect, but it's her imperfections that make her real and make me love her even more. Victoria, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I know I've made mistakes. I've hurt you, and I've hurt others. I'm not a perfect man. But I promise you, from this day forward, I will spend the rest of my life loving Claire, protecting her, and making her the happiest woman in the world. All the love I failed to give in the past, I will give to her 100 times over. The hallway was silent. Even Megan and Ava were quiet, their eyes suspiciously bright. Victoria stared at me for a long time, her own eyes turning red. Finally, she turned and opened the door. Go on then, she said, her voice catching. My sister is waiting for you. I walked in and saw her, my beautiful bride, sitting on the bed in her white dress, smiling at me through her tears. I knelt before her and took her hand. My love, I'm here. At the ceremony, her father placed her hand in mine. He looked me in the eye and said, simply, you take care of her, son. I nodded, my heart full. At the reception, my 4 ex-girlfriends sat together at one table, a beautiful, terrifying, and utterly unique sight. I went over with Claire to toast them. Victoria, Ava, Megan, Chloe. I began, stumbling over the names. Ava laughed. Relax, Ethan. We're all family now. Just use our names. Megan raised her glass. You pulled it off, Carter. But if you ever hurt my little cousin, the 4 of us will hunt you down. Don't forget that. Chloe just smiled sweetly. Be happy, both of you. And Victoria, my first great love and greatest heartbreak, looked at me, then at Claire, and a quiet peace settled in her eyes. To the happy couple, she said, and drained her glass. Who could have imagined that these women, who had all played such huge roles in my past, would end up here as my family? Later that night, exhausted and happy, Claire curled up beside me. Ethan, she whispered, do you have any regrets? About what? About meeting me. If you hadn't, your life would have been so much simpler. I smiled and kissed the top of her head. No regrets. My biggest regret was losing Victoria. My greatest luck was meeting the women who came after her, who helped me grow. And the best decision I ever made was finding you, and this time, holding on with everything I have. Claire, all my other stories were just prologues. You are my happily ever after. She looked up at me, her eyes shining, and sealed my promise with a kiss.